What do you think about the housing situation?
I don't know how people can afford a house these days. Like when I bought my house, right, I was able to afford it. I saved some up. I bought a little bit from my parents, which I paid them back slowly. So I was able to kind of get my foot in the real estate market. But now, with the current wages structure of the people that make, and if you want to buy a house, you can't afford it. Well, you may be in years able to afford an apartment and then, hopefully a townhome, but I don't know how you can afford a house now. You just can't do it.
I think the prices are not favorable for younger people, and especially people who are doing jobs that are lower wage in general, like myself, I guess.
It's quite disappointing because of the lack of actual development of low-income housing. It just feels like we're taking affordable homes and big amounts of properties and spaces and building up really expensive high-end condos and high-end places to live and appealing to bring in a lot of exotic money, exotic people coming in to buy high-end goods like super designer stores and stuff. I feel like it doesn't appeal to the actual populace that was living and building the city. As someone, I've grown here for 20-something years, yeah.
How do you think my generation or your kids will be able to buy their own apartment?
You know what? I'd never like to say never. I think it's very difficult in this market where we live in BC here. It's probably the most expensive real estate. I think they'll be able to afford their own home. It just may not be where they want it to be. I mean, houses are affordable in Saskatchewan, but who wants to live in Saskatchewan, right? So, situations and markets often change, right? And, the housing market always seems to go up, but it does have these times in life where it does not always go up, and it does turn around at some point. How low it comes, nobody knows. Nobody has the crystal ball to predict those kind of things, but I think overall you just got to use financial discipline and right money management, and if you can manage your money properly, you can end up affording a house at some point. And again, it may not be in the best location, but you have to start at some point.
They won't. They won't without probably without help from their parents or somebody that can help them with the down payment. My sister, she's about 8 years younger than me, and her and her family are trying to get into the housing market, and it's extremely difficult. Like I say, they both have good jobs, but the housing is not affordable. The inflation, wages have not kept up with inflation. Cost of living is not in line with people's wages. Most people don't earn a living wage. So it's going to be very difficult for the next few generations, for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I know it doesn't sound, it's not positive, but it is the truth.
I think you will be, but it'll be very difficult and it'll be a lot longer process. Like if my daughter's in university now, she wanted to buy a house, she'd have to save it for a few years, right? And plus maybe borrow from me to buy an apartment, right? And hopefully over a few years she'll develop enough equity where maybe she can buy a townhome. And then maybe a few years after that she's developed enough equity and maybe she'll be able to buy a home, right? And even that, like with help, and even then we don't know how long it'll be. Like it's before, when you were a young person, you come out of university like I did, you work for a few years, save a little bit of money, borrow a little bit, buy a house, right? But situations completely changed. Completely. You can't. Like it'll take you on your own. You couldn't buy a house right away. You'll have to work for a few years, get help from your family, and start off with a condo or something, right?
And what do you think are underlying causes? I mean, who is responsible?
It would be a lack of regulation on just anything in general. So it'd probably have to do with the amount of money flowing into the city and in and around. There's a lot of houses that are just bought and then used sparsely. I don't know enough personally to know where it goes, but I know if we follow the money, it'll tell you who's benefiting and why the city is developing in the way that it is.
I think that we don't have a lot of things that's available to everyone. That's good and that's affordable. Everything is private. Maybe that's part of it.
The war and the pandemic, everything that happened all at once, right? The situation was so bad. The countries around the world, interest rates were so low, they pumped a lot of money into the economy, and then things just started going so high, and now they're trying to correct it. And they might be able to do it, but it'll take a couple of years, I think.
Part of the problem is our immigration. We have a lot of foreign people that are coming in with overseas money that are able to buy the homes at the inflated rates that they're at. And again, I think a lot of the problem is that wages are not rising at the same rate as inflation.
People thinking that the economy is going up, people are not being paid more, and a little bit of delusional. You get houses in Maple Ridge, Coquitlam, mainly Coquitlam, or hell, even Surrey, charging these absolute ridiculous rates, right? A 3-bedroom years ago used to be somewhere in the range of like $1,900 a month, give or take, right? Now I've seen the ones in Vancouver, for God's sake, be almost $3,500 a month. I don't know where these people get these numbers from. People come from the States, buy real estate, right? And then just like charging a ridiculous rate. It's not a housing market, right?
What are some suggestions or changes you would like to see from the government or local organizations to address these challenges effectively?
Put more restrictions and regulation on things like private property and just housing in general. Make more public housing that's affordable and good quality, and provide better wages for people.
You can't just keep pumping money into the economy, as we've seen, because not only it creates inflation, but it just opens up for abuse of finances, right? And the only thing I can say is when there's situations like this where there's inflation and you have different problems, maybe the budget allocation could be going to solve immediate problems, not completely, but a little bit more. The problem's still going to be there, like inflation. But if they allocate certain type of resources, not only financial, but that problem will not persist for a long term, right?
Probably have to do with regulations and dictating what people have to do with their buildings as they build them. Minimizing the amount of people who can own multiple properties, or putting a limit on it before you have to put it under a business or something, because multiple people owning multiple houses drives up the cost, because you can't live in two places at once, and that takes away a family from somebody else.
Government involvement, I'm always wary of in housing. Any sort of open market situation, when you get the government involved, it's no longer an open market. So too much government involvement with the housing problem might not have the desired results. Again, I say some of the money that should be put towards that probably isn't being put towards that.
Do you trust current government to solve all those problems that we have talked about?
No.
No, I don't trust the government at all. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not loyal and dedicated to what they try to do, but I think overall even that system is a broken system.